Hello and welcome to today's video, everyone. In this one, we're going to be discussing humanity as it is presented in the Halo franchise, or more specifically, how they've been presented and why I think a turn that was made around Halo 4 cascaded the entire series into a worse position, the position we see it in today. And you can read, so you've seen the title, Human Supremacy in Halo, I believe was a huge mistake. Now, what do I mean by human supremacy? What I'm referring to when I say this is the power level of humans as a faction in contrast to other prominent powers in the Halo galaxy. We'll get to more of that in a moment, but I just want to recap a bit on what makes Halo Halo to build up to the point I'm trying to make. When you look at the original Halo games and their spin-offs, one of the most central themes to its identity was that humanity was on the back foot. Sure, we could get a couple wins here and there, but at massive losses, and most of the time, the best we could get is escaping with our lives. We would lose colonies, facilities, technologies would be lost. People would probably make moral decisions they otherwise wouldn't have had to choose in the threat of absolute annihilation by the alien covenant. And it was because of that brutal, crushing defeat that humanity kept facing that we as the players got to experience the heroic, triumphant, and impressive feats of ingenuity showing what humanity can do when its back is against the wall, and more directly showing that we are able to turn the tides of battle, even if only a little, and that Master Chief for the games was able to make a huge impact despite being one man. But it was never just Master Chief. We're shown that it required all of humanity to work together. Master Chief just helped facilitate that near the ending days of the war. But in Halo 3, that conflict came to an end. Master Chief finished the fight, went to sleep, and Earth got to live another day. But it did not do so unscathed. Earth was glassed partially, had hosted a flood infection, and had been battered not just in Halo 3, but Halo 2 and thus the events of Halo 3 ODST as well. So it didn't have an easy time. And yet the series was able to continue after Halo 3. And what did they do to accomplish this? They used prequels. They explored other battles that we didn't get to see in the games that was still interesting. They either had their own unique story compared to Master Chief's, or they just had impressive battles that Master Chief was not a part of. Halo Wars got to show us some of the earlier First Contact fights, not the earliest, but earlier than Master Chief's day, and ODST got to show us what it was like not being a super soldier in the Covenant War, having to skulk around your own home planet of Earth just to survive. And even at the end of ODST, it's not a happy ending. The city of New Mombasa gets mined anyway. You just managed to escape with some intel. When you're trying to lead a huge franchise as a company, the way Microsoft is, you're going to want the series to last as long as it can whilst making as much money as it can. And so even with prequels, there's only so far you can take it before the public are probably going to get fed up of it or lose interest. Halo Reach was the last of those classic Halo games to come out, and it was effective because it tied directly into Halo CE. Its ending was the beginning of the first Halo game, so it was a very sellable theme to rally consumers around. And it got to tell its own story as well, of a more gritty look into those brutal defeats, because whilst the brutal defeats have always been present and have always been stated, as I've been saying, Halo obviously wasn't a weary, dreary series. There's still a lot of humour and comedy laced throughout the game. But Reach wanted to show the more depressing part of it, and I think it did so quite well. But once Reach was done and Bungie walked away, Microsoft obviously wanted Halo to keep going. And that's where 343 was formed, and Halo 4 was made, they needed to make a new conflict, spark a new call to action for the next however long they were thinking Halo was going to go on for, and that's why we got Halo 4. But I think that they missed the point of those conflicts in the way they set out to do this. I remember vaguely the Infinity trailer or something like that while we were waiting for Halo 4 to come out. And humanity, they were tall and proud, and they were displaying the newest feat of their technological innovations with the Infinity ship. And it was huge, absolutely massive. It dwarfed Covenant destroyers. But how did we make this? Humanity only had Earth. As far as Halo 3 led me to believe, Earth was all we had left, and it was partially glassed. The other colonies were either dead or destroyed, and I believe it's 4 years in between Halo 3 and Halo 4. How on earth, quite literally, did we manage to go from having 3/4 of a planet to building the biggest, greatest ship of all time, the Infinity? And I think as well, in the 343 era of Halo, there's other human colonies again on other planets, I'm pretty sure. How did we do that? How did we go from being beaten to almost extinction to the point where we were willing to just fight to the end, expecting to die on Halo 3, to in 4 years, okay, yeah, now we've got a couple planets, we've built the Infinity, the Covenant basically couldn't do anything to the Infinity. It's, man, they're so lucky it wasn't ready 4 years ago, because this giant ship that would have taken years to build, oh, well, we just didn't have it then. But we have it now, with less resources, less ways to manufacture the part. It makes no sense to me how we have that. And that's not to even mention the Spartan 4 program. All the Spartan programs before the Spartan 4s required a whole childhood to fully complete and resolve properly. And now, in 4 years or less, we have people becoming super soldiers. And unless the pricing market became very generous, aren't Spartan armor pieces supposed to be as much as our frigates or destroyers? Super expensive, yet we have a whole platoon, more even, of Spartan 4s in that armor. They were trained in less time, and they have the same amount of armor. So unless it was dirt cheap, which even if it was cheaper, the point is that we just wouldn't have the resources to produce things of this scale so quickly. We had next to nothing. And it goes unexplained. It's just an accepted fact now. Yeah, no, but Halo 3, there's this time glitch, and suddenly, actually, we were doing pretty okay for reals. The Covenant were just getting lucky. Maybe the books describe this, right? But the games have never once touched upon this, and I did read some of the books here and there, so I still have not heard why this has happened. Everyone just seems to be okay with the fact it would change. If it's in the books, fine, but that doesn't completely remove the downside to this choice. If I pretend, okay, let's just say it's explained and the reason is compelling. I don't believe that's the case, but let's just say that's how it happened. Even then, the problem is now that story of humanity being on the back foot and having to be innovative to overcome adversity is completely gone. As Halo 4 rightly shows us, the Infinity can just plow through Covenant ships like they're nothing. The whole dynamic has been destroyed. What do we have to fear from it, the Covenant, anymore? We're basically invincible to them. And Halo 4 did actually understand that, which is why they brought the Prometheans in. But this makes the Covenant's inclusion feel all the more pathetic. The Covenant exists in Halo 4 just to show how much further humanity has come and how much stronger the Prometheans are. You see elites get glory killed by Promethean knights. You see us just plow through them. In gameplay terms, they kind of suck compared to the Prometheans, who are overpowered. And their leaders, like the Jul Dharma, just are blundering oafs that seem stupid, and they're only here because they grabbed powerful technology from their forebears. The Covenant in Halo 4 are a complete joke, and the Prometheans, The fact that they had to go to the Forerunners to give humanity a challenge because of how much power creep they gave us kind of shows that maybe that wasn't a good idea. By doing this, they took away one of the best parts of the Forerunners, being the fact that they were mysterious because they were dead. In the older Halo games, when you did interact with something Forerunner that was still operational, like Guilty Spark, that had impact because it was the remnant of something that is no longer around. And I'm not saying that they couldn't have explored the Forerunners a bit more and introduced more Forerunner-based characters or technology. That's fine, that's what you expect. But the Prometheans were basically an entire Forerunner faction. And then they had the Didact as well, which just seems like a character they completely wasted. I read the book trilogy that the Didact was from, so I kind of knew the character, but I still feel like they screwed it. Having him present at all, I don't know, especially as an antagonist, but having him present at all just takes it away. You're now talking to a Forerunner, not an AI, not a recording, an actual Forerunner. Maybe it wouldn't have been as bad if they handled him differently, where he didn't have this random rampancy in his brain that made him super aggressive, and he could have actually been interesting to talk to even if he was still a villain, but he's not. And then they bring the Librarian in. What were they doing with that? The Librarian's kind of dead, but she's kind of not. She's a digital spirit, and she just says, alright Master Chief, I'm now going to give you superpowers. But we're not going to explain it, and it's also not really going to matter outside of Halo 4, but I'm going to just do that now and evolve you as this human being. Okay, where did that go? Now we're just even better than we were before. Great, that's what we really needed more of that. Anyway, I'm writing a bit about Halo 4, let's move on. Halo 5, that cutscene at the beginning with the superhero blowing up mountains and destroying an entire Covenant army, it looks like, with just 4 Spartans, again shows you how much of a joke the Covenant remnants are. Apparently they were not able to develop their technology since the Human-Covenant War. Meanwhile, we, the humans, have at least tripled our technological prowess. The fact that these Shang-Heili elite warriors that have been training since childhood, which would be longer than the Spartan 4s have been training, are just getting mowed down by the score from 4 Spartans. What happened? What happened? Master Chief was able to destroy tons of elites on his own, sure, but he is one of the best Spartans there are. He may not be the strongest, he may not be the fastest, but he as an overall character is just one of the best Spartans that there ever were. And for some of his combats, he was paired with Cortana. Most Spartans did not get paired with a super smart AI, so that helped them a lot as well. These guys are just 4 Spartan 4s, and they can demolish entire armies like it's nothing. And although Master Chief was great, he wasn't exactly doing what you see in the intro of Halo 5 to every encounter he came across. He was a bit more conventional. The stakes feel so flimsy when you see such displays of power and dominance from the human forces, and then the game tries to make you feel like, oh, well, watch out, because they've got glowy weapons, so they might hit you a little bit. And they do another power creep for the enemies in Halo 5, where before in Halo 4 was, alright, now you're fighting Forerunners. In Halo 5 it's like, okay, now Cortana has merged with the Forerunners, and she's evil, and she's back, and I'm not going to go into that because that's a completely different topic. I just don't like it though. Anyway, the problem is, where does this all go? She activates a bunch of super powerful guardians that shut down electronics, lock down planets, turn AI against us, and it means that all humanity have left is the Infinity as we flee off into the darkness of space. But then the next time we see humanity, the the AI threat is completely demolished by themselves. I don't know how all of these Guardians didn't factor at all into this war with the Banished, Cortana, and humanity. The Guardians look like they can wreck the Banished just as much as they can wreck us, but the way Halo Infinite portrays it, there's like 7 Guardians, they destroy a planet, and then they just go offline. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because there is one more thing I need to talk about before Halo Infinite. which is Halo Wars 2. Halo Wars 2, I think, actually got it right. We get to join the Halo Wars 1 Spirit of Fire crew, and the thing about them is since they've been out of action the whole time, their technology level has not increased and improved. And what this means is that when they come across the Banished, despite the fact that this is a war that will only take place on the Ark and not many planets like the main Halo conflict did, humanity, aka the Spirit of Fire, are vastly underprepared and outgunned by the Banished forces, and it returns that dynamic back. And the fact that the beginning cutscene of that game shows Atriox beat 3 Spartans just on his own helps enforce the fact that, yeah, you're not going to have an easy time here. One criticism I will give Halo Wars 2 is I feel like the Spirit of Fire, in reality, probably didn't stand a chance, because not only was its tech outdated, but there wasn't a resupply between Halo Wars 1 and 2. They just arrived and the conflict started. Yes, they picked up some human tech on the surface of the Ark, but by and large, they were what they were at the end of Halo Wars 1, and we used a lot of firepower in Halo Wars 1. However, this is not real life, this is fiction, and I'll let it slide because it allowed us to get a pretty decent conflict. But they took the Banished from there that were very reminiscent of the Covenant in terms of human-alien relation and power, and they put them in Infinite to try and get a similar effect, but it doesn't land the same, because unlike the Spirit of Fire crew, the humanity the Banished fight in Infinite are way more powerful. We've got Spartan 4s everywhere, we've got the Infinity that we saw before smash through Covenant ships like it's nothing, but now the Banished somehow did the same to the Infinity, or at least did a lot of damage by ramming it. But the Banished are using mostly repurposed Covenant tech themselves, so it's strange that they are able to do what other Covenant ships could not. Just because you paint it red doesn't actually mean it gets stronger. And if they are better ships, why on earth is it that the Banished could develop better technology in this time, but the rest of the Covenant species didn't bother? There are ways to continue a Halo timeline past Halo 3 without having to completely sacrifice the themes that established the storytelling and the reasons for gameplay we had gotten in the original trilogy. I understand that having a we're on the back foot scenario over and over again would get tiring, and it's good to spice it up. That I completely agree with. But at the same time, overpowering humanity to the point where you have to overpower the enemy or make really silly concessions like with Infinite, where suddenly humanity is now on the back foot again and all of the power we established is mysteriously not working or just absent. Where are all those Spartan 4s? Well, you see a couple and they kind of died. Okay, they blew up the Spartan 4 training camp. Okay, what about the colonies though? If Cortana's out of the picture, shouldn't their technology be back online? What are all the AI doing? We're just not going to mention that, and so now it doesn't matter. Halo Infinite didn't come with many solutions. They said, it's back, it's all back, but they just brushed so many things under the rug. Regardless, they can still make Halo games, even if they're not going to have that exact dynamic, but what they shouldn't have done is give humanity all of this power and then have to retroactively remove it because they realize too late, oh wait, we can't really do any stakes anymore. What do you think about this issue of human supremacy that's really been prevalent in most of the 343 era titles, and is it really a problem? Could these stories actually be great and it's purely just an issue of execution? And what do you think of the Banished compared to Halo Wars 2 as they are in Infinite? That one I really do want to hear your opinion on. In my opinion, Halo Wars 2 had the Banished in a far better, more believable and properly utilised method than in Halo Infinite. Anyway, thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. It helps the channel immensely, and it would let me know that you want to see more of this type of content. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time. This is the Mighty Emperor, signing off.